this edition of Headlines Nigerian ITI. I am Rachel Owa with summaries of Nigerian events from our national dailies. From Punch newspaper, reps exchange blows again. The crisis in the House of Representatives degenerated into a free-for-all on Tuesday as lawmakers exchanged blows, injuring one another in the process. 11 members of the progressive-minded legislators, a group calling for the resignation of the Speaker, Mr. Dimeji Bankole, were placed on indefinite suspension following the fracas. A pro-Bankole lawmaker, Mr. Chinyere Igwe, was injured in his right arm after Nwachukwu attacked him with a substance suspected to be tear gas. Senate investigates report on jumbo allowances. The Senate has begun another investigation of newspaper reports on allegations of the corruption and bloated allowances earned by senators. Its ad hoc committee on ethics, headed by its chief whip, Senator Kanti Bello, is yet to submit its report on an allegation of corruption made against the Senate by a newspaper report credited to a senator. Screening: Nigerian VIP still flex muzzles at airport. Although the federal government had beefed up security at the airports with a thorough screening in the wake of allegations against Nigerian suicide bomber Farouk Abdul Muttalib, most very important personalities, VIPs, still do not see the need to adhere strictly to all the screening procedures. A recent security breach at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, however, has brought to the front burner the issue of VIPs not willing to go through total security screening at the airport. Death of values, cause of poverty in Nigeria, ICPC. The chairman, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, Emmanuel Ayola, has identified death of positive values in the society as the major cause of agonizing poverty and unmitigated suffering of the ordinary Nigerian in the midst of plenty. From Vanguard newspaper, Jonathan Thags Senate on terrorism, money laundering bills. President Goodluck Jonathan has asked the Senate to expedite action on the passage of the anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism bills before it in order to avoid sanctions from the Financial Action Task Force, FATF. President Jonathan, in the letter to the Senate, which was read on the floor yesterday by Senate President Senator David Mark, said failure of the Senate to pass the two bills before June 30th, 2010 will slow down the fight against corruption, terrorism and economic development. From this day newspaper, Jonathan heads to Canada for G8 summit. President Goodluck Jonathan leaves for Canada this night to attend the 2010 summit of the group of 8 industrialized nations, otherwise called the G8. His attendance at the summit, which takes place on June 25 and 26, was at the instance of the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Stephen Harper. 5.2 billion naira scam. EFCC may summon more legislators. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, may summon more federal legislators with regard to investigations into the 5.2 billion naira Rural Electrification Agency contract scam. The EFCC boss, Mrs. Farida Waziri, recently stepped up investigations into the contract scam in which a number of lawmakers in the Senate and House were implicated. From the Tribune, El-Rufai is frustrating trial, EFCC. Former Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, was on Tuesday accused of frustrating his trial on charges of corruption brought by the Prosecuting Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, even as he argued that the trial Federal High Court sitting in Abuja lacked the power to try him. The prosecution told the court that the accused were using delay tactics to ground the trial. And in politics, the Tribune newspaper has this 2011 more trouble for IBB, as groups, Nigerians step up global campaign to stop him. As the former military president General Ibrahim Babangida sticks to his gun to run for the 2011 presidency, the global drive to stop him has attained frenetic tempo. Information obtained by the Nigerian Tribune showed that no fewer than 5,826 mass media-based organizations and individuals across Europe, United States and Africa had endorsed a petition to be forwarded to world leaders against his attempt to return to power. 2011 elections, women must be given 50% elective offices, Sambo. Ahead of the build-up to the 2011 elections, Vice President Namadi Sambo on Tuesday clamored for more roles for Nigerian women. saying for the country to reach its desired developmental level, women must be given 50% of elective offices in the forthcoming 2011 general elections. Obasanjo canvasses separation of powers between executive legislature. Former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo has called for the separation of powers between the executive and legislative arms of government. The former Nigerian leader is expected to give a keynote address at an international conference at the coastal city of Mombasa, Kenya on Wednesday, that's today. Jonathan's posters litter Akure streets. Posters urging President Goodluck Jonathan to contest the 2011 presidential election surfaced in major streets of Akure, the Ondo state capital, on Tuesday. The glossy posters, which have as caption, "Youth asked Dr. Goodluck Jonathan to contest as president," generated comments among residents of the city. And in business, Tribune newspaper has this caption, "Banks challenged CBN on 1% contribution." The sincerity of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, in improving the fortunes of the economically active poor under the ongoing banking reforms has been further challenged as microfinance bank operators in Cross River State have pushed for the Apex Bank's implementation of a 1% contribution to the microfinance banks by the various tiers of government in the country. From Punch newspaper, why Ghana imposed $300,000 fee on Nigerian businesses, others, investigation. Though the Ghanaian government has come under severe criticism for insisting that foreign businesses in the country must invest a minimum of $300,000, reports have it that the authorities are unperturbed and may not be willing to reverse the policy. From the Financial Standard, 2010 budget will focus on economic growth areas, says Aganga. Olusegun Aganga, the finance minister, has promised that the 2010 budget will be implemented in such a way that key elements in the economy would be developed. He stressed that the budget would focus on areas that will grow the economy. Aganga said the budget will be implemented appropriately. The idea is to be completely focused on areas that will grow the economy. And in sport, Vanguard newspaper has this caption, "Worst Eagles ever crash out of World Cup." Nigeria's disjointed run at the 2010 World Cup in South Africa yesterday came to an end after the Eagles were held to a 2-2 draw by South Korea in Durban, a result that ensured that the Koreans joined Argentina to qualify for the second round. From the Nigerian Tribune, Nigerian jailed for stealing World Cup tickets. A Nigerian has been sentenced to 3 years in prison by a World Cup dedicated court in South Africa for allegedly being in unlawful possession of 30 match tickets. The police told Associated Press that the man, Kunle Benjamin, was sentenced on Wednesday after he could not give a satisfactory explanation why he had the tickets in his possession. Lagabas tactics not good for Eagles, Disu. A former Flying Eagles coach, Tunde Disu, is not happy with the tactics adopted by Super Eagles coach Lars Lagerbäck at the World Cup. Disu said the Swedes' approach was inconsistent and did not encourage victory over the opponents. From kickoff.com, sacking Amodu was a mistake, Odewingi. In a surprise turnaround, Osaze Odewingi has said that it was a mistake to fire Shwaibu Amodu and replace him with Lars Lagerbäck. Odewingi was one of the players who spoke up against Amodu at the African Nations Cup in Angola, leading to the axing of the former BBC Lions coach. But after a disastrous World Cup when Nigeria finished bottom of a winnable group with just 1 point out of 9, the Locomotive Moscow forward told kickoffnigeria.com that it was a mistake to fire Amodu. Osaze attacks Lagerbäck. Nigeria forward Osaze Odewingi on Tuesday rounded on coach Lars Lagerbäck, saying the Swede made mistakes and claimed the sense of injustice had not been given enough playing time at the World Cup. Odewingi also suggested that he was left out of the final game against Greece because of what he said. "I think that it is a big mistake with Nigerian football when we have one defensive midfielder and one creative in front of him. All our middle was open and that was a problem we had against Greece," Odewingi told kickoffnigeria.com. That's just the way it is for we Nigerians. We love winners and hate losers. That's it on this edition of Headlines Nigeria. Thanks for logging on.